Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
A couple of days ago, a cold chill went up the spines of men in North America. People go, that was kind of chilly feeling there. And the reason is, of course, a story sent to me by Jason, David, Steve, and Ralph. An unmarried Ontario couple had no children and no house, but the man must still pay support, according to the Canadian Court of Appeals. NationalPost.com published it. Colin Perkle wrote it. And a wealthy businessman will have to pay more than $50,000 a month in spousal support for 10 years to the woman with whom he had a long-term romantic relationship, although she was not his spouse. And they kept separate homes and had no children together. This is according to Ontario's top court. So keep in mind, this is Ontario. It is apparently law specific to Ontario. So this is not necessarily even the law in the rest of Canada, nor is this the law in the United States by a long stretch. But this is the kind of thing where you peer across the border into Canada and you go, hey, things are kind of cool over there. Things are kind of neat. And something like this happens, you're like, ooh, okay, once in a while. Under Ontario law, an unmarried couple are considered common law spouses if they have cohabited, which is living together in a conjugal relationship. I'm not going to get into all these definitions because some of them are dirty, but cohabited and conjugal. But that is continuously for at least 3 years. But that doesn't necessarily mean living in the same home. That's according to the court ruling. The appeal court said lack of a shared residence is not determinative of the issue of cohabitation. There are many cases in which courts have found cohabitation where the parties stayed together only intermittently. The decision comes in the case of a man and a woman, both from Toronto, who began a romantic relationship after they met in October of 2001. At the time, she was 38, he was 46. She had kids already when they met. He had 3 kids as well. Apparently, at the time she was separated, he was divorced. They maintained their separate homes, but they behaved as a couple. Now, here's the thing. Aren't they a lovely couple? Does that word mean they're married? I wouldn't think so, but they vacationed together. He gave her a 7.5 carat diamond ring and other jewelry that she wore. Now, you might say, Steve, why are you laughing at those 3 words? That she wore. Of course she wore a 7.5 carat diamond ring. Helped her work out that arm, whichever arm she put it on. But the problem, of course, is that the court's saying that means something. If he gave her jewelry and she kept it hidden away. This is one of those rare examples where they look at all these little oddball things and go, but it all adds up to something. She quit her job and would regularly sleep at his house. Now you'll notice at his house is not necessarily the same thing that you were thinking when I said that she'd regularly sleep at his house. They traveled together and spoke of living together, although they never did. Now, they traveled together. But again, when you see someone traveling together, you go, they must be married. They're traveling together. Now, the man did propose to her several times, and she accepted. However, he insisted she sign a prenuptial agreement, which she refused to do. He actually gave her proposed drafts, which she would read and go, I don't like this, I'm not going to sign this. So you can't say that she accepted his proposal because his proposal clearly was contingent on her signing a prenup. But again, I'm criticizing this after it's happened, and the final score is in, the referee's blowing the whistle. Buzzer went off, this game's over. Throughout their relationship, the two kept separate bank accounts and never owned property in common. That to me is the biggie. They never bought any property in common, which means they had no joint ventures. Nevertheless, he gave her money every month, a credit card, paid off her mortgage, and showered her with expensive gifts. He provided her and her children with a lavish lifestyle, according to the court. And this is one of those examples where you look at this and you want to ask the court, do you understand what this is going to do? When this story gets publicized, it's going to make guys go, I'd like to pay off her mortgage, but I'm scared if I do, that means we'll be married. The appeal court wrote theirs was a committed relationship. Yeah, committed except for the fact that they weren't married, and she refused to marry him because he insisted she sign a prenup. when their 14-year relationship finally broke down in May of 2015, the woman asked the courts to recognize her as the man's spouse and to order him to pay her support. He argued she had been a travel companion and girlfriend, but nothing more. As such, he said they were never legally spouses and he owed no support. So they had an 8-day trial. An 8-day trial. So just to give you the update, man and woman dated for 10 years. They broke up, and she's suing him, and there's an 8-day trial to determine how much money he owes her now. In the decision on February 2019, written by Superior Court Justice Sharon Shore, she sided with the woman. She ruled they were, in fact, longtime spouses, finding that despite their separate home, they did live under one roof at the cottage for part of the summer and also during winter vacations in Florida. So Shore ordered him to pay her $53,000 a month forever. $53,000 a month, indefinitely. And, that's great work if you can get it. Now, the man obviously appealed this one, and the Court of Appeal looked at it and affirmed most of it. But they did put a time limit on those payments. The higher court leaned heavily on the analysis, finding that she was right to conclude that cohabitation can occur even when the parties stay together intermittently. The appeal court did find Shore had made an error in deciding how long the man would have to pay the woman support based on when they first began cohabiting, while the judge had found that to be almost from the get-go. The court said it wasn't earlier than their first stay together at his cottage, meaning they didn't reach the threshold for the indefinite payments. Instead, it ordered him to simply pay her for 10 years, $50,000 a month, times 12, times 10. I could do the math when I'm a busy man. The woman and her lawyers declined to comment, and lawyers for the man did not respond to requests for comment either. Now, I often joke about people who claim that Black's Law Dictionary is the law, and it's not. And Black's Law Dictionary, however, is used from time to time to define terms that are not defined within statutes. I'm willing to bet that if I were to go and dig up the Ontario statute on cohabitation, I could probably find that they have a definition for cohabitation. And they'd say, here's what cohabitation is. But I'm merely pointing this out because I think it's interesting from an entertainment value, is that most people think cohabitation, habitat is where somebody lives, Habitat for Humanity. And so cohabitation would mean that you'd have to co means you do it together. You'd have to be living together to be cohabitating. That's the common sense thing. And I understand that the law is not bound by common sense. The law is bound by the definitions of the statutes. But I am going to break out the Black's Law Dictionary because I like to do this from time to time because it's a heavy book. And if I don't pick it up off the shelf from time to time, that shelf might collapse. But I'm just curious to know, and by the way, we'll call this Black's Law Dictionary Roulette. I've not looked this up yet. So I could be completely wrong in what I just told you. It wouldn't be the first time. But I want to see if cohabit has the connotation that I thought. Oh, cohabitation, page 316, and this is Black's 10th edition, not the much more robust 1906 edition. Cohabitation, the fact, state, or condition of living together. Living together. Now, you can say, stay living together, though. What does that mean? Does that mean under one roof? Or does it mean spending a lot of your time physically in the presence of each other? The fact, state, or condition of living together, especially as partners in life. Cohabit, cohabitor. And it does say there's a distinction between cohabitation and marriage. So in other words, marriage is one thing, cohabitation is something less than that. But it is the fact, state, or condition of living together. So, like I said, I think most people, when they hear the word cohabitation, assume that people are living together. So I think that's why most people are going to be kind of surprised by this ruling. But again, the man's been ordered to pay her over $50,000 Canadian a month for 10 years. And the original ruling was he had to do that for the rest of her life, based on the fact that they dated for 10 years. But of course, the court says, well, it's much more than dating. It was cohabitation, despite the fact they were never underneath the same roof permanently, nor did they have children together, and nor would she marry him when he asked. But Canada, in particular, in Ontario, right now in Ontario, there are men who are thinking to themselves, could this be me? Unmarried Ontario couple had no children and no house, but man must still pay support. Appeals court rules $50,000 a month for 10 years. NationalPost.com published it. Jason, David, Stephen, Ralph sent it to me. Thanks a lot, guys. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. What do you call a snowman in July? A puddle.